So in our last lecture, we were discussing the distribution of leishmaniasis, and where we see the visceral leishmaniasis, where we see the cutaneous leishmaniasis, and where we see the mucocutaneous leishmaniasis. So overall, when it comes to all three forms of leishmaniasis, there are 12 million people infected, and 350 million people who are living there, they are at risk to capture the leishmaniasis. So now we're going to, as far as the vectors are concerned, the vector of leishmaniasis is a sandfly. They are very, very small size fly. They are smaller than mosquito. So all those traps that are used for mosquito mean they cannot be used here. So even the mosquito nets, they do not give you protection. Because the size of fly is very, very small, so it manages to pass through those nets. And as far as the size is concerned, if we trap that fly on a paper trap, normally we just introduce the castor oil and then hang that trap during the evening, and then normally we hang those traps close to where we have the animal herds, or where we see the poultry, or even where we see the vegetation. So what happens that we just place those traps with castor oil, and those castor oil, they manages to trap insects, and among that, if you have sandfly in that area, you also manage to capture that sandfly. And that sandfly just appears like a yellow drop, very, very small size, hardly visible with naked eye. So it's like this, a yellow color drop, because it has a yellow color on paper. And then you just need to pick that fly, and then you need to observe under the microscope to confirm whether it's a sandfly or not. There are two prominent genus that serves as a vector of leishmaniasis. Majority of it is Plebotomus. In my population, we have lots and lots of Plebotomus genus of sandfly that are serving as vector. The other fly is the Lutzomia, and that's the second genus of sandfly that serves as vector. Very small sized fly, hardly visible with naked eye, very, very small size. And that serves as a vector. And we have sandfly, both of sandfly in our population as well, in district Mirpur. So as far as the different manifestation of leishmaniasis is concerned, leishmania is presented in three forms. One is cutaneous leishmaniasis, other one is the visceral leishmaniasis, and third one is the mucocutaneous leishmaniasis. Visceral leishmaniasis is different from other two forms because it involves the visceral organ, and mostly either it's the spleen or liver. While whether it's a cutaneous leishmaniasis or mucocutaneous leishmaniasis, they have something to do with the skin. So very different. Visceral leishmaniasis appears to be very different from cutaneous and mucocutaneous leishmaniasis. As it involves the visceral organ, so it's the most severe form of leishmaniasis. And in my last lecture, I showed you a chart in which various forms of leishmaniasis along with those vectors, they were mentioned. So when it comes to the visceral leishmaniasis, Leishmania donovani is the prominent species that is responsible for leishmaniasis. The other two species are infantum or Leishmania shigasi. That this visceral leishmaniasis can appear in chronic form, or it can go with an acute form. So you know what is chronic and acute form. As far as the susceptibility is concerned, all age groups, they are susceptible. And most of the time, the disease appears as an acute form. And if the person is not being treated, person who has the signs of visceral leishmaniasis not being treated, there is a huge chance this is the only form of leishmaniasis that causes the death. So that ends in death if the person is not treated. So it's the fatal form of leishmaniasis. As far as the signs and symptoms are concerned, in visceral leishmaniasis, you have fever, and that fever is irregular. Another very prominent sign is the splenomegaly. What do we mean by the splenomegaly? That we see an enlargement of the spleen. And in severe condition, the spleens become larger than the liver, so huge size spleen. If it affects the liver, so that leads to the hepatomegaly, enlargement of the liver. During the course of immunology, maybe you have seen like stuff like this, lymphadenopathy. That is the enlargement of or swelling of lymph nodes. So that it has a range of symptoms. You can have the splenomegaly enlarged, so it's a sign that is visible. So you can have a splenomegaly, you can have hepatomegaly and lymphadenopathy. Enlargement of the lymph nodes, enlargement of the spleen, enlargement of the liver, irregular fever. And that is being accompanied by other signs like the weight loss, diarrhea. And sometimes you see a low white blood cells and platelet count, anemia, that is another thing. RBC count will decrease. Another name for visceral leishmaniasis is the Kala Azar. As this is a disease of Indian subcontinent, so you can see the word appears like this, Kala Azar. And local people, they used to name that disease as Kala Azar because it causes the darkening of the skin. So it's when someone has a fever along with the darkening of the skin and the enlargement of the visceral organ, they consider it, okay, it's a Kala Azar. Kala Azar, why? Because it leads to the darkening of the skin, visceral leishmaniasis. So a common name of visceral leishmaniasis is Kala Azar. And these are some pictures where you see the enlargement of the visceral organs. And that leads to the huge abdominal region. Secondly, this is also followed by the darkening of the skin. Skin appears to be dark. If the person Kala has a dermal leishmaniasis, that means in Indian subcontinent, occasionally in East Africa, a cutaneous form of leishmaniasis occur 2 years after treatment, visceral leishmaniasis. The Kala the patient has huge darkening of skin. And then you have the erythematous patches where you will going to see the blood as well, blood. And then that could lead to the ulceration of lips and tongues. And if you look at all those papules and nodules that are being created on the skin, if you just dissect them, you will going to find the A mastigotes. These are horrible pictures. A post Kala Azar, after you encounter visceral leishmaniasis, after some time you just encounter a dermal form of leishmaniasis. We name it as post Kala Azar dermal leishmaniasis, where you have the huge papules, nodules, crested lesions on skin. And these are very, very ugly pictures to be seen. As far as the causative agent is concerned, I told you the species of leishmania that is responsible for visceral leishmaniasis is Leishmania donovani. Once again, very prominent. At any time, when you will going to read about any parasite, one of few things that you need to know at the start is that, and at that time you will have lots and lots of idea about that parasite, is that decide whether it's an intracellular parasite or extracellular parasite. So this is an intracellular parasite. That means this parasite invades inside the cell. So once you know some parasite is intracellular parasite, the next step, you must need to know what kind of cells this parasite invades. And in case of Leishmania, it invades your macrophages. So the macrophages are the victim of Leishmania parasite. And here you have, this is something repetition that in my population, we have the Leishmania donovani as in old world, and when it comes to the new world Leishmaniasis, visceral Leishmaniasis, the species of Leishmania that is responsible for infection in new world, we name it as the Leishmania chagassi or infantum. You can use any of those names. So as far as the genera is concerned, we have the Phlebotomus genera in our population, while in New World, that is the American world, they have the Lutzomia genus of sandfly. So Phlebotomus and Lutzomia. So in my population, we have the Phlebotomus. As far as the morphology of Leishmania parasite is concerned, as this is an intracellular parasite, with most of the intracellular parasite that are flagellated, we have a spherical form that does not have a full-fledged, so we have a spherical form that is reduced in size, that is inside the cell, and we name that form as A. mastigotes. As you know, this is from Sarcomastigophora within the phylum Sarcomastigophora. This is from subphylum Mastigophora. So this is a flagellated protozoan parasite, and as far as its life morphology is concerned, it appears in two forms. One is the promastigote, that is the flagellated form that is outside the cell, and amastigote, that is a spherical form reduced in size. This is the form that exists within the host cells. So in extracellular form, promastigote, and intracellular form, that is amastigote. Here is the life cycle, and its life cycle by CDC, Center for Disease Control Program. So what happens? That when a sandfly bites a person, it injects the promastigotes into the skin. So with a bite of sandfly, the promastigotes, they are introduced in the body of human. So that's why with it, you will going to see a triangle with eye, and that's very important. What's the infective form of Leishmania parasite? It's the promastigotes, because Leishmania parasite enters into the body of human in the form of promastigotes. So once the promastigotes, they got injected into the skin, those promastigotes, they are being phagocytized by the macrophages that are immune cells, and I will not going to discuss in more detail because we have a separate course of immunology. You know about what are macrophages. But these promastigotes, they never ever allow the macrophage destruction mechanism to destroy these parasites. So as the macrophage fail to destroy these parasites, what will going to happen? That these promastigotes, they will transform into the amastigotes inside the macrophage. So it's a transformation to the amastigotes. These amastigotes, they will going to multiply within macrophages, and their number will increase, and ultimately the macrophage cannot tolerate this. So ultimately the host cell will going to burst, and when the burst, they got released, and now they will going to enter into another cells. In this way, the parasite number will keep on increasing within the body of host. So as they got released into the blood and various tissues, what will going to happen that when a sandfly bites an infected person, so along with the blood, it also takes in the macrophages. And those macrophages, they are themselves infected with A. mastigotes. Because when a sandfly takes the blood meal, it also ingests the macrophages, and when it ingests the macrophages, those macrophages, they are infected with A. mastigotes. So in this way, the A. mastigotes that are inside the macrophages, they got transmitted to the sandfly. And once after ingestion, these A. mastigotes, they transform into the pro-mastigotes in the midgut of sandfly. And after division, these in the midgut, these pro-mastigotes, they make their way back to the biting part of or feeding part of the sandfly, that we name it as the proboscis. And when this sandfly bites another person, a healthy person, it will going to inject those pro-mastigotes there. So life cycle only two morphological forms. One is the pro-mastigotes and other one is A. mastigotes. As far as the diagnosis is concerned, we need to look for parasites within the macrophage. So A. mastigotes is the diagnostic stage. That's why in case of visceral leishmania, in case of cutaneous leishmaniasis, normally we aspirate all that fluid that is in that lesion, and then from that we just prepare the blood slides, and then we look under the microscope, and we try to look for A. mastigotes that are within the macrophages. So the diagnostic stage is A. mastigotes, and infective stage is pro-mastigotes. And that concludes my discussion on life cycle of Leishmania donovana. As far as the diagnosis of this parasite is concerned, the conventional labs, they normally diagnose it by observing the Leishmania donovana within the macrophage. And as they are looking for a parasite within a cell, so they have to look at 1000 magnification. Or they use the 100 objective lens of compound microscope. As 100 objective lens of compound microscope and 10 we have the eyepiece, so it overall makes a magnification of 1000. So you have to magnify it 1000 times in order to look under the microscope. Observation of parasite under the microscope, and that concerns the diagnosis. So where you get those specimens aspirated from bone marrow, can be spleen, from lymph nodes, and from blood. So these are all locations. If there is splenomegaly, aspirate some fluid from spleen, and then you can observe it under the microscope. If there are lymph nodes that are being inflamed, in that case, lymphoid adenopathy, in that case, you need to just take fluid from lymph nodes, and then, or you just use the blood. Secondly, you can use the advanced diagnostic assays as ELISA and PCR, and we already discussed it. As far as leishmaniasis is concerned, the dogs, they are normally the reservoirs of infection. How we can be protected? Stay away from sandfly. If we have a vector control, we can control the leishmaniasis. And then it's all about just preventing the vector from biting you. So as far as the treatment is concerned, the sodium antimony gluconate or pentamidine isothiionate, these are all drugs of choice that are available to treat visceral leishmaniasis. That concludes my discussion on visceral leishmaniasis. Do you have any question regarding this? Just feel comfortable and ask. And now I'm going to switch to another form of leishmaniasis. I need to switch my slide, so let me move to the next slides. It's not working, it's hanged.